Hello, I'm Matthew McIver, Artistic Director of the Iowa Stage Theater Company. And I'm delighted to have a conversation this time with Jennifer Nostrala. Jennifer is a professor at Simpson College, and she has been heading up as head of the theater department there, Simpson Productions, a new venture which is a cross department collaboration between the opera program and the theater program at Simpson. She also is a director around town, including for Iowa Stage Theater Company, most recently working on The Cake, and we'll hear more about that. So I hope you enjoy this conversation about making art in the time of Corona with Jennifer Nostrala from Simpson College. Great. Uh, well, Jennifer, thank you so much for talking with me today. Just for folks who may be less familiar, just share a little bit about you, about your background, and your work at Simpson and your work in the theater community here. Just a little
Okay.
intro, if you would.
Okay, I can do that. So, as I mentioned to you before we started this, I've actually been at Simpson in the theater department for 30 years now. And, the joke is that I came as a guest artist for about a 2-month gig, and then a 9-month contract opened up. And as I said, it was really funny when I'd say after 5 years, oh, I was only supposed to be here a year, and now it's been 30. So,
Wait, you stretch a 2-month gig out into like decades of work. That's
I
like you're the
know.
envy of artists everywhere.
Exactly. I really, I cannot complain. I cannot complain.
Oh,
So one of the things I've been the department chair, which then means I am sort of in charge also of Simpson Productions for now. This is my 8th year doing it. So it's actually interesting because I'm in the process. I will be handing it off June 1st to my colleague Mimi Kammer. So it'll be,
great.
yeah, so it's going to be a shift over, but it will be in good hands. And I will continue to do everything else that I do there in terms of teaching and
Sure.
directing and all of that. So that's what I do at Simpson, and I've been there for a long time. I also teach in the Women Gender Studies program, so I like to mention that.
Mhm.
And
So,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, so you teach at Simpson, you direct at Simpson for the theater productions there, but you mentioned Simpson Productions. Tell a little bit about that because it's a relatively new venture for you guys, isn't it? And second or third year now that you have this sort of production company that encompasses not just the theater department.
Yeah, it's actually first year, the first complete year
Oh,
of it.
okay.
So a few years ago, about 5 or 6 years ago, we did a co-production with the opera program. So it was a production of Carousel, and
Hmm.
the conductor was Dr. Bernard McDonald, and then I was the stage director, and that was our first foray into truly kind of a collaborative relationship. And then come 4 years later, we decided we wanted to do it again. We wanted to do it at least once every 4 years, so students always had that experience if they were here with us 4 years. And so we did Kiss Me Kate. And again, Dr.
Oh,
McDonald
yeah.
was the conductor, and I was the stage director. And we just knew that there's really positive things about bridging our programs together. The opera
Mhm.
program has, been around for a very long time. The Des Moines Metro Opera was birthed out of that program, and but the challenge is they always had to operate really on their own. And in many ways, it's sort of silly that they're kind of operating as an ad hoc production company when it's what we in the theater department do all the time. So,
Right.
because of the relationship, we were able to really start working on what it would look like if we were one production company. And so we were able to move that forward. We had really great support from the administration and from the Simpson board. And so we no longer are Theater Simpson and Simpson College Opera, we are Simpson Productions. And so that meant everything fell under us. And it's been really good in terms of efficiency and management and creativity and planning. And what we did was we always planned really 6 projects for a year, which means 4
Hmm.
fully produced shows and then 2 smaller, really student focused shows. So
Hmm.
we did Magic Flute and Enemy of the People in the fall. And then we did 10-minute plays that were directed by students. That was the fall. And then the spring was Doubt and the production of Pirates of Penzance. And then Festival of Short Plays for 50/50 in 2020. So we got 5 out of the 6 off the ground. and then COVID-19 showed up.
So this would have been, you would have been in terms of your school production calendar, right about what, mid-March there?
Yes, and it just so happened we often do our second major production after spring break, but just the nature of the calendar, we were pretty front loaded in the semester. So Doubt happened in February, and Pirates
Right.
of Penzance happened in early March, and we closed Pirates, and we had auditioned and cast Festival of Short Plays, and that was kind of, and all the designs were complete for Festival of Short Plays, but that's where we had to stop. So
Oh,
yeah,
and
so
so
that's a whole thing.
so it started rehearsal yet, the festival?
They
The
had,
short
I
play?
think some of them had maybe a read through, but the plan was to really hit the ground running after spring break. The actors
Right.
all have their scripts. They were supposed to be working on lines over spring break, and the school
And your
was,
spring break fell around the 13th or
yeah,
16th of
yes,
March.
yeah. So
That's
what we
when,
did was we ended up, what was that, Friday the 13th, of course. That was the last day of classes, and we went on our first
right,
week of spring break. And
right.
really quickly after that, the institution said, we're going to take a second week of spring break. But even before we left, I had met with the students and met with my colleagues, and we'd already had kind of a contingency plan. Okay, if we come back with this amount of time, we would do this. If we come back with this amount of time, we can do this. We did not articulate to the students what happens if we don't come back, because that was not where we wanted to leave the conversation, even though that's eventually where we ended up.
Had you had that conversation internally with the faculty, like what you would do if you didn't come back?
No, I
Or
think
was it just
it
like,
was,
at
yeah,
that point, we just have to scratch it?
yeah, I think we just knew that we were going to have to. I mean, if the school cancels, then we just knew that everything was going to be canceled. And as you
Right.
started to hear that athletic programs were canceling, once NCAA Division III said there's no more athletic competitions, you start to see what the writing on the wall is going to be.
Right. Right. And even, looking at the entertainment industry nationally, the NBA canceled relatively early, relating compared to Broadway or some of those other things.
Yeah, yeah, it was
Um,
just sort of going to be a rolling kind of
right.
cancellation process.
So what was the experience at the sticking with Simpson College for a minute? Like, what was the decision-making experience for you guys? Like, was it pretty quick that Simpson College was like, we're not coming back this semester? Was it, we're going to come back here, we're going to push that back 2 weeks, we're going to push that back 3 weeks?
No, it
What
was,
was it?
I don't know. I'm trying to remember the time, because everything, of course, now at this
Right.
point is one big blur.
Well,
It's
it's
like,
about 1,000 years ago, right? I
yeah,
mean, it's
exactly. Well, everything is like one big Zoom meeting. So, I feel like I live inside.
700 years ago when it was in March, right?
So I think for me, the college just handled it really well. One of the things that they put in place was the notion of this extra spring break for the students, and they put that in
Mhm.
really quickly because it meant that gave the faculty time to prepare.
Right.
So as soon as they were doing that, they were having faculty development workshops. They were saying, here's how you can move to remote learning. This is what you need to have online. They set up a pretty clear standard of just really low key basics that you needed to put in your online environment. So they were doing that really quickly. So they
Mhm.
decided fairly early in the process that we would not come back to campus. I mean, I think that was somewhere in the midst of the spring break. And as soon as they made that decision, then we knew we just had to tell the students that unfortunately there's nothing else we can do but cancel it. So I would just say the college was really good, from my experience in terms of articulating to all its constituent groups really early the decisions that had been made and the decisions they hadn't made yet.
That's that's huge. That level of communication has been really important.
Yeah.
Um, Now, in addition to your work as a professor at Simpson, as a department chair at Simpson, and in leading Simpson Productions in his first year, you also are a theater director off campus, um, and have worked for a number of different places over the years. Uh, you directed for Stage West. Who else have you worked? I mean,
Well, I
forget
did
Stage
in the
West.
local area. It's interesting because my sort of directing local career also was in relationship to having young kids. So when I had young
Right.
kids, I didn't do as much in the community. And then as they were getting older, I did The Quiet Man out at Winterset Stage, and then I self-produced a production of Fat Pig that went up at the Old Des Moines Social Club.
Yeah.
So, which also was a surprising number of years ago. And in the midst of that, I really I really connect to.
The late great Des Moines Social Club.
Well, it's so weird. I mean, time is a strange thing because I love that space and I loved having that opportunity, and it was a really
Yeah.
great opportunity for me. So I self-produced that, and then Ron Lambert and I met, and we had a great conversation, and that was then when I got connected to Stage West, and I directed, I
Hmm.
think, 3 shows under the Stage West umbrella.
Hmm.
So I had done that, and then at a sabbatical, I directed down at the Vortex Theater down in Austin. I did a production of Hamlet down
Okay.
there.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
so yeah, so primarily locally it was with Stage West, and
Hmm.
then it was great when you invited me in to be able to do A Doll's House last fall, uh,
Yes,
which
that was.
was great. It was perfect timing for me. I love doing the show. I love working with a new company. I just had such a really positive experience with that from working with you. And I'm not just saying that because I talked to you, but working with the designers because it was such a great, design team for me.
Well, and it was a challenge for the design team because this crazy artistic director forced you to do it in rep with A Doll's House Part Two.
Well, I know there were some challenges to that, but it was also great. It also meant, it was really interesting because I hadn't worked with Jody Jinks before, and
Mhm.
we didn't work together, but we were there together, and we were in meetings together, and we got
Jody being the director of A Doll's House Part Two.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I thought that was fabulous, kind of chance to collaborate at a certain level with a director because we get really isolated as directors.
Yeah.
We're sort of alone on our project, and so I just really appreciated getting back into it and being able to be with that team, and then working on what were 2 really timely shows, even though my focus was on one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have to say you cast it really well. I thought it was terrific. Ben Sheridan and Tiffany
Oh,
Flory in the 2 lead roles were fantastic.
God, they were great, and they were great to work with. I mean,
Yeah.
it was such an ensemble experience
Yeah.
to be able to dig into that text and to really build it. And then we were really spoiled because Jay basically had the set built in the space. So the transition from the rehearsal space to the performance space was sort of not non-existent because he had
Fairly
just
minimal. Yeah, those
put the
pieces were
space
in
there.
there really early. And
Yeah.
Jay Jangum, of course, the extraordinary designer who did the set for both shows. 2 really different shows. Iowa Stage was the only the second company in the country to do those 2 shows in rep, and the first was the Denver Center, and they opened 3 weeks before we did.
I was gonna say
Ah.
they just beat us.
Yeah, I think we actually announced before they did. It was a little frustrating, but um, I have to say that you guys delivered a wonderful production. I thought there was a lot of wonderful stuff in Doll's House Part Two. I think I learned a lot about why people don't do them together. There's such hugely different shows that it's really
Yes. Yeah.
they comment on each other really interestingly, but they're a real challenge stylistically, so different.
Yes. Very much so.
Obviously, being from 138 years apart. Well, and then we were fortunate enough that your schedule opened up to come back and direct The Cake for us, Becca Brunstetter's play, and you were engaged. We were engaged in that right around the time that spring break came at Simpson.
Yes, which also meant right when COVID-19 showed up as well.
Yeah,
So
where
that's it was really intense, and I guess I don't know. I sort of interrupted you, but I just we had the 4 performers in the show. I felt like we had really developed a great bond, and they were really forming these characters. Um,
and this
and
show, for folks who may not know the show, is a it's very funny. It's got great comedic chops, but at the same time, it's an emotionally intense show. What's your sort of elevator pitch about? What's your description of the show for folks who may not be
Oh,
aware?
that's sort of interesting because now it's like, oh, my elevator pitch a month ago would have been right at the, tip of my tongue. And, as we talked about time, 500 years has passed. But
Yeah,
really,
right.
it is a look at the desire for people to be seen and
Mhm.
valued for exactly who they are, not for who other people want them to be. Now, that's a big general statement, not dealing with the fact that it's
Yeah.
about, a baker in the Carolinas choosing not to bake a cake for her dead best friend's daughter because she's marrying a woman.
Right.
So, that's the impetus for it, right? So the cake baker, out of religious beliefs, won't bake the cake.
Mm-hmm.
But what we get at from that is the desire for human beings to be acknowledged
Mm-hmm.
for who they are, and an understanding of what love actually means.
And fascinating to read a little bit about the show and how Becca Brunstetter herself is one assumes from the play a fairly liberal Hollywood screenwriter for This Is Us and other TV shows, but is the daughter of a very right-wing state senator in North Carolina, who ended up being the sponsor of the very controversial anti-trans bathroom or anti-gay marriage. He was a sponsor on the trans bill, but he was outlawing gay marriage, a constitutional amendment to outlaw gay marriage in North Carolina. I follow this a little bit because Becca Brunstetter's play is set in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which is 20 minutes from where I grew up. So it's a wonderful piece, and you had a wonderful cast. Obviously, some really intimate parts of that show between, Ray and Kim. I can't remember the characters' names. Ray Faring and Kim Hames were the two couple. Hold on one second, Jennifer. I'm on a call. Do you need me? We'll edit this part out.
I don't think you should edit it. That's the reality of it, right? It's what we're all dealing with.
Hang on one second. My wife's yelling at me. I'll find out. Julie, did you need me? All right. Well, I didn't get a response to that, so I don't know if that's good or bad.
I know. You'll find out eventually, though, won't you?
I will. Okay. All right. I'll find out. Anyway.
Yes. The characters and the acting.
Yes. Kim Hames and Ray Faring played the couple. Becky Schultek was playing, I can't remember any of the characters.
So, right. So the couple, Jen is the one who's coming to ask for the cake to be baked. Right. And then her fiance is Macy, who Ray plays. Right. And then Della, which is a perfect Southern name, Della is our cake baker that Becky Schultek was playing. And then Tim is her husband.
Which is James Serpento.
Yeah.
So this story that we had talked about with the cake, you guys had been working on it for a number of weeks at that point. Where were you in the process around March 13th, Friday the 13th, which sort of was living up to its reputation?
I know. Well, I think actually we had canceled. I think we had pulled it before then. I'm trying to think what day it was, because you and I had been having conversations and it was kind of coming down to it. And I think it was the Sunday before that.
I think it was the Sunday. I think it was the 15th.
Was it the 15th? Because I thought we were going to go into tech on that day.
No, we were going to load in on the 22nd.
Oh, look at me looking at my calendar, trying to make sense of the world.
22nd was loaded because it was 27th was the opening.
Right. So that was.
And it seems a million years ago.
I know.
Right? It's a month ago.
That's right. We were going to open on the 27th. So we knew things were going to start to go south. We had a run-through scheduled. There was going to be a designer run-through on the 15th. And so our plan at that point in time was to go ahead and hold that. And our stage manager, Sarah, had decided, well, she was already going to record it. That way we would have it as an archive. Mm-hmm. And but we knew that we were probably going to have to be put on pause. And then it was, I think, because you were traveling.
Yeah.
Right, you were
I was in
traveling.
I was in Rochester, New York, the 13th and the 14th when we had our first conversation on that Friday. I was on the road to my mom's house in Rochester, New York for spring break, um, and then was there on Saturday, Sunday as you and I continue to talk about the situation
Yeah,
and what
that's
we can
right.
do.
I know. So I think, part of it was the notion of, I think my biggest concern was that we had really made great progress. They were embodying these characters. They had good working relationships. We were making excellent discoveries. We were just really at that place where you go, okay, now let's just see as it forms and develops, because we had another week of rehearsals and then we had tech. And
Right.
the connections that they had, the moments that were being developed, the subtlety that was there, but the fight that was there, and each rehearsal was like, okay, if you do this, what does this do? And you could just watch, those moments in rehearsal where everything's starting to open up and these discoveries are being made. And the four people were just really, really right for the roles. They were really engaged in the roles. So part of my concern was the notion of, the play stopping, but also these people not doing this play. And not that there aren't other great actors in Des Moines. There are other great actors, and there are other actors who could do these roles. It's just you get to that place where you're really attached to what you
Yeah.
have. And so then we had the rehearsal scheduled. The actors came in. We had the lighting designer there and the stage manager there. And that was then when we asked, well, what would be possible? When would they be available again? And that was when, we talked about, I think you mentioned the idea of maybe July, was things were looking that way. And I was in some ways relieved, partially, really because the four actors went, they would be available. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, that's, we're going to have to put this away for a little bit, but we'll get to come back to it at some point. So it's really just disheartening. And it's also disheartening because there you are, what you would want to do with these people in the room is you'd want to hug them and say, okay, we'll see you on the other side, but we couldn't do that.
Right.
So we all had to go, okay, we'll see you, bye. And we didn't do the run through because there's no point to do that, and
Right.
right. we didn't need to do that. And plus, it was an intimate play, and even the moments that aren't intimate, they're close.
They're less than 6 feet apart.
Yes.
A lot of the time.
Yeah, the play would not work 6 feet apart. It's not. Yeah. I'm sure somebody's writing that play right now, titled 6 Feet Apart. So it'll be slightly different than 6 feet under. There is sort of a weirdness, though, to me, that the 6 feet apart is the same thing as 6 feet under. But anyway.
Well, that's not one I clicked on before. I used to love that show. Yeah, and it's I had seen the work that those folks were doing and was really excited for audiences to come in and see that, and was really looking forward to what they would do once they got in front of an audience. Because with a comedic show, there's a different feeling once you get bodies in the seats responding to it than there is just in the rehearsal room. As funny as it may be in the rehearsal room, you don't really know what you have on your hands until you're able to hear the give and take with an audience. That's one of the beautiful things about theater is it's not filmed. It's not just a one-way conversation. It's a circuit. It's the energy comes back from the audience to the performers, and the performers give energy to the audience, and it's a link, between people who may or may not be connected to each other otherwise.
Right. Which then we're also missing is that the notion of Brunstetter saying about having cake afterwards, that the idea is for us all to kind of have cake. The notion is not for the experience to end when the curtain falls or the lights go off, that it continues. And so that's a part that is also you cannot do you cannot share cake or cupcakes from Creme. You cannot share those.
Creme cupcakes.
You're not in the room together.
Yeah, and my younger daughter turned 9 this past Friday, 24th of April, as we're recording this, and you don't think about some of the traditions we have, but so some of the neighbors came over and we sang and she blew out the candles, but it's like well, this food that she's just exhaled all over, we're not going to then hand that to people. You don't
Oh,
think about
right.
what a weird tradition it is to like, here, I just breathed on this, have it. It's just, it doesn't seem horrifyingly gross until you start thinking in that way about,
Yeah.
oh, no, we're not going to offer that to people. That's just, that would be wrong. But it's something we would have done without a second thought
Yep.
2 months ago.
Oh, of course. Of course.
So we can say at this time, I think maybe by the time this goes out, the announcement will be out if I can get all the other pieces together, that you guys will be coming back to do the cake in the 2020-2021 season for Iowa Stage, probably about 10 months from when you were going to do it initially. So we're incredibly excited to have you. And at this point, I think we've got everybody on the cast back. We're excited to have I think we'll have the production team back together, Lord willing, and nothing huge changes between now and then, but it seems like huge things are changing all the time.
Well, right. Right, but you have to plan, but we have to move forward. You can't go, well, we don't know what's going to happen, so we're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
So
that's, in which case we would get to next February and not have anything to do. That's part of the challenge for Simpson Productions too. Have you guys announced your next season? Have you guys talked about?
We have. I mean, and so our season is, we've got 6 shows. We're going to actually open with an opera, a Jonathan Dove opera, The Enchanted Pig. We're going to do, I know, it's great. Oh, it's great. Fefu and Her Friends, so Fornes piece, Fefu and Her Friends.
Yeah. Which just got a New York production. This past season.
Right,
yeah.
Which I just missed. I was in New York and there were at that time, but I missed it, which is unfortunate. It's such a great play. It's so great. So I'm really glad we're doing it. We're going to do really a contest, a play reading kind of contest. We'll do a concert reading of short plays written by students. That'll close out the semester, and then we're going to do the Weil and Brecht's The Threepenny Opera.
Oh, wow.
So we're opening the spring with that, and then we're going to do Larissa Fasthorse's satire, the Thanksgiving play, which is about a group of woke theater artists doing a bad Thanksgiving, politically correct Thanksgiving play, and it's brilliant. God. She's her writing is brilliant. So we're doing that in March, and then we have our festival of short plays, which is Theater Between the Wars. So that's the plan. Theater Between the Wars. So it'll be plays that are pulled from American plays, primarily between World War I and World War II.
Oh, how interesting.
So
that's great.
Do we have contingency plans at this point? No, because we have our staff leadership is in place, our student leadership is in place. We're moving forward as though we would be able to do these normally. I mean, if it comes down to students can be on campus, but we can't have audiences of more than 50 or so, then we adjust accordingly. I think that, both education and theater are very similar. We can do these things online, but the truth of the matter is it's not the same.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Theater in particular, it's not the same. And have you guys thought about or engaged in any sort of online stuff or digital stuff for your productions? Or are you just saying, you know what, we're gonna look and see what the fall holds. We're moving forward like it's going to be a theater production.
Well, I think, yeah. So one of the things we did, so for Festival of Short Plays, when I had to cancel it, it was horrible because these are the student senior project. And it really means that from the point in time as a first year student that they realize that's what seniors do, they start thinking about what will my project look like. And they had to choose the plays. We develop a theme every year. So this theme was 50-50 in 2020. So looking at the issue of parity. And they started reading plays in the fall, choosing the 5 plays we were going to do. They had their assignments. So the seniors, there were 7 in the class. 3 were directors. We had the production stage manager, the set designer, the costume designer, and the lighting designer. And so they had been working on this for a long time. And then suddenly it's, you can't do the show. So that was hard and horrible. And one of the most difficult things I've ever had to tell a a group of
Yeah.
students. And then it was like, well, are you just going to turn in an assignment? What is this going to look like? And it was not easy for them to get to this place, but they finally came to a place where they're working together, and they have produced what I kind of call visual podcasts, because um,
Hmm.
they are putting them up on YouTube. They have 6 episodes done. They have an episode that is sort of an overarching idea of design concept and director concepts and the issue of parody. So they have that episode, and then they have an episode for each of the productions. So they're doing 5 plays. Actually, I want to tell them the plays and mention the playwrights, because the playwrights have been really supportive. Many of them have responded back. So they're doing In the Beginning by Rebecca Ritchie, The Hour by
Hmm.
Susan Goodall, Rise by
Hmm.
Crystal Skillman, Super Hot Raven 1 and 2, The Ravening by Megan Goddard, and Well Done Poets by Laura Quinn. And so each of those has an episode now. And
Fantastic.
they're actually all available on YouTube through Simpson Productions.
Would you, well, send me the links to those, and we'll put them in the description
Oh,
of the
great.
video.
I will
'Cause
definitely. It's a list. They've got it as a playlist, and they're going to do the final episode will come out on the 29th of April, which
that's
is
fantastic.
what does it mean to create in this climate? So they have really turned it around. And it's interesting because when I listen to it, I was listening to it the other day, I forget that they're not all in the same room together. So there is something about feeling together even though they are actually apart.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. Well, I'm excited that they're doing that. I'm excited that there's an opportunity for them to explore new ways to make theater. And these are your seniors, you were saying, so they're off into the world next year, um, in what is an extraordinary time to try and be a theater maker in America, for sure. So good for them, and we'll be delighted to see those links, and we'll put those down in the description for folks to take a look and enjoy that work and get to know some of those theater makers.
Great. I
Um,
appreciate that.
what's next for you? What are you doing? Obviously, you have a gig now in next season with Iowa Stage.
I know. So, which is great. So, and I
You
was
got a
glad we.
good head start on that one, I think.
I know. So I was also glad. I mean, it made me happy to know that we weren't just ending it. There is sort of that notion of starting something and not finishing it, and so I feel really good about that. I'm the one directing The Enchanted Pig at Simpson
That's in the
Productions.
fall.
Yeah, so that's what I'll be directing in the fall, and then I'm directing the Thanksgiving play in the spring. And then my goal, so about 4 or 5 years ago now, I wrote a play that we produced at Simpson. It's called Knowing Joan, and it is a combination of a contemporary story with the Joan of Arc story. It's actually about
Cool.
uninspired a woman who's having a hard time doing her music, actually, and she gets inspired by Joan of Arc. But I'd like to go back into more writing, so I'm hoping this summer that I can kind of work on maybe a couple more plays, or just at least get to writing. So if I'm going to not be, that's part of the joy of passing on leadership, is that opens up someone's time and space for other things. Now you just have to use it.
Will you? So does that change your role not just within the department but also with Simpson Productions?
Yes, because really, the theater department chair kind of by default becomes the manager of Simpson
Gotcha.
Productions, just because they're so interwoven. It's hard to separate them. So I'll
Gotcha.
still direct with Simpson Productions, and certainly help advise my colleague in any way that she needs. But I get to sort of take a back seat now.
That's great. Well, congratulations. I'm glad you'll have that opportunity, and look forward to that. And we'll look forward to the coming fall from Simpson Productions and the production of The Cake this coming February at Iowa Stage. It'll be good to have you back.
Thanks, Matt. And I just want to say thank you for everything you're doing for the arts here in Iowa.
Okay.
I think trying to keep the arts in the forefront of people's minds. It's hard, and I get it's a pandemic, and people are worried about the economy, and they're worried about the health, and all of that's important. But we need the arts to help us through those things, and I really appreciate what you and Iowa Stage and other companies are doing.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. Thank you. I agree. It's important, and I think it's going to be an interesting time to figure out how it all moves forward, but I'm a big believer that it moves forward together. So thank you for everything you're doing down there in Indianola, and when we get to pry you loose to come up here.
I know.
So,
I look forward to being out there. I just have to share one thing, because I'm about to go
yeah.
do is I'm going to go record some acting scenes. So the final for acting class, we went suddenly, the project they were working on before we went into quarantine was Naomi Wallace's great play, One Flea Spare. So dealing with the bubonic plague, no, I didn't do that intentionally. So they were working on that project, but then I decided I had to figure out what for them to do for their final project. I have 6 in the class, so I split them into 2 groups, and they are doing Samuel Beckett's play, where they are in 3 urns. And
the play is called Play.
The play is called Play. It is 3 people in the afterlife. They are trapped in urns. It's a very existential Beckett play, and we can do it on Zoom.
That's awesome. Are you going to be posting that one too?
Yeah, I might. I should say that I don't know, because I don't know if any of the Beckett people will ever track it down.
No, but you absolutely won't be posting that ever or anywhere they could possibly look. No, that would never happen.
I think Beckett would love it, though. If we're going to be in this existential world, we might as well do that stuff, right?
That's true. It's a shame we can't write and ask him. Although we can't, I guess we could, but we just shouldn't expect much in the way of a reply.
That's right.
Well, that's fantastic. Wow, those are 2 plays that those students are going to remember for the rest of their lives. They're going to be seared into their theatrical memory forever.
I think you're right.
And what great! I did a reading of Wallace's Slaughter City years ago that I still sharpen my knives a particular way because of a monologue I had in that play. She's such a powerful writer.
She is. That's also really, that's a great play. And perhaps timely, if we also think about some of the issues that are happening in some of our meatpacking places. So all sorts of connections between art and reality.
Oh, now maybe I need to go read that play again. You might have just stirred something up in there. Well, thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate your time. Appreciate all that you do. And thank you. Good luck. Be well. Stay safe. And I look forward to a time when we actually can give each other a hug.
I know. Me too. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.